Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Golden Age. This is our series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle Reports, and this is Battle Report number 56. It is a 2,500 point battle that is fought between my friend Smells Like Febreze as well as my own army. Smells Like Febreze is bringing the Wyld Hunt of his Wood Elves, and I am bringing the Garden of Nurgle, my 2,500 point Legion of Chaos army. Now this one's going to be kind of interesting because it is a rematch between my friend Smells Like Febreze and I. I got my butt handed to me the first time around I fought against him, so I've been looking for some payback. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Valor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Alright, so let's talk about the scenario real quick. It is a battle line scenario. It is the typical standard way of playing Battle Warhammer. We have standard deployment rules as well as standard victory conditions as always, and that's because it's the very favorite type of battle line we like to play for the scenarios for Warhammer. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table. I'm deployed on the near side of the table while my friend Smells Like Febreze is deployed on the far side of the table. So with scenario rules over with, let's go ahead and talk about the battle plan real fast. So here's an overhead shot of the entire battlefield. Last time I fought against Smells Like Febreze, I kind of hesitated and I decided to castle up and defend last time, and that is not going to be the same thing to do this time. This time I realized I'm just going to have to take the offense and to try to attack him this time around as well. Now because he has the special character Drika in his army, he does get the Rouse to Wrath ability, which means that D3 Force Spirit units get to deploy later on at the battlefield. This time around though, he only gets to deploy his Tree Man, which is Sternbark the Harrower, so because of that, I'm not going to stick around this time. I'm going to try to move across the battlefield as quickly as possible, engage him, and try to destroy his military forces. As you can see, I am vastly outnumbered in terms of the number of units he has, and he has that huge column of tree kin I got to worry about. So my plan is to take apart his Dryad units, then take out his characters, and then hopefully, if I have enough guys that survive, try to take on that huge column of tree kin from the Troop of Dawn. And that's pretty much the battle plan I'm going with on this one. So with the battle plan over with, we go directly to deployment. So starting my far left-hand flank, deployed up forward with my Scouts rule, I have the Inglorious. That is a unit of 3 Nurglings. They're posted right in the front there in front of that audible-looking forest, so that way they can either bog down a unit of Dryads or bog down Dirthu, whichever one they'll be able to whatever becomes a target of opportunity. And that makes my deployment here on the left-hand flank. In the center of my army, I have 2 units. On the left-hand side, that is Horticolic Slimex, my exalted hero. He's mounted on Mulch, his War Shrine of Nurgle. Horticolic Slimex is an exalted hero. He's packing a halberd as well as shield and chaos armor. He also has the Dragon Helm, so it gives him his 1-up armor save, as well as the Dawnstone, so that way he can reroll armor saves as well. And he's a pretty cool little kid I got for my army. Right next to him, on the right-hand side, that is a Dustman. That is a unit of 23 Chaos Warriors of Nurgle with shields and hand weapons and chaos armor. They also have full command as well as the standard of discipline. And then located in the middle, of course, is Festus the Leech Lord Empowered. That is my level 3 Lord of Nurgle special character. I put him inside the Dustman because he gives him a 5-up regen for that unit, also gives him poison attacks as well. And that makes it the center of my army. And making it my right-hand deployment is the Dustman, the Tallyman. Right next to the Dustman is the Tallyman. That is a unit of 30 Plague Bears this time. Sorry, not 30, 25 Plague Bearers, I apologize. I decided to reduce the number of Plague Bearers I have, and the reason why is because I wanted to bring more different units into my army. So my Tallyman, they have 25 plague bearers, hand weapons, full command as well. They also got the standard of swiftness, so that way they get a +1 movement to their +1 to their movement. And in that unit as well, I got Barnabas the Scrivener. That is my Nurgle of Herald of Nurgle. He's got his hand weapon as well. He's got the battle standard bearer upgrade, and yeah, that pretty much makes it. And he's also got the Razor standard for the unit as well, so it makes it a little more killing in close combat. Just because these guys have pretty low strength, and having the additional armor piercing will definitely help out, especially since I'm fighting 4 spirits this time. And on the right hand side, with the points I saved by reducing my unit of tallymen, I have the Droning Horrors, which are 3 plague drones of Nurgle. They have full command as well. They also have death heads as well as plague proboscises as well. And then right behind them is my general, that is Haster the King in yellow. He's my Demon Prince general. He's also level 4 Lore of Death wizard. He's got the Charm Shield. He's also got the Sword of Striking and the Dragonbane gem. And he's also got, for his gifts, he has Scaly Skin. He also has Soul Feeder as well as a Chaos Familiar. So it makes him have 5 spells and also gives him +1 to his channeling. And that makes my deployment on this one. Now across the battlefield, it smells like the Freeze forces. On the left-hand side, that is Durthu, the Eldest of Ancients. That is the special character. He's also a level 1 Lore of Beasts character as well. He is packing the Savage Beast of Horos for his spell. In the center, that is the Court of Seasons. That is a unit of 20 Dryads with a Branch Nymph. And then right next to him on the right-hand side, that is a Troop of Dawn. It is a huge unit of 12 Treekin. There's also a Treekin Elder looking at that unit as well, and they're putting a column formation 3 wide as well as 4 deep. And that's the that is the unit I'm afraid of, because that's a really hard killing unit, and they can do a lot of damage as well in close combat. And making up the center portion of his army as well, he has Coedel the Will Lord in the back. That is his level 4 Lore of Life Treeman Ancient. He's also got Strangle Roots. On the left hand side, that is the Court of Oaths. Those guys are 19 Dryads with Branch Nymph. Also leading that unit is Dryka, the special character. She's a level 2 Lore of Shadows. And on the far right hand side, that is the Court of Tides. That is a unit of 20 Dryads with a Branch Nymph. And at the top of the tower in the far right hand corner of the battlefield, that is Sternbark the Harrower, a tree man with a Strangle Roots upgrade as well. And he's not really deployed on the tower, he's just located there because my friend Smells Like Febreze used him for the Rouse to Wrath ability. So he'll be popping up at the bottom of the first movement phase for the Wood Elves. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and Smells Like Febreze and I, we roll for initiative to see who goes first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Wood Elves, and this photo is taken after the move phase. And as you can see in this photo, my buddy Smells Like Febreze just moves his forces forward. He doesn't really march them per se. Most of his center units just move up their normal moon allowance, while the ones on the right hand flank, they do march forward a little bit. As you can see, he has Durthu right behind that Honorable Forest right next to my Inglorious. He's also got the Court of Seasons helping him out there as well. He has marched forward his Treekin from the Troop of Dawn, as well as the Court of Oaths and the Court of Tides, and he also marched at Durthu as well. So that he's got kind of like this nice little line formation where he's completely surrounded by forests to give his units the obvious buffs they need, because, you know, they're forest spirits. At the same time, the bottom of the turn, he did roll for the Rouse of Wrath ability and brought back Sternbark. As you can see there, Sternbark the Harrower is looking at the far right hand side next to that forest, looking straight at my right hand flank. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Here's a close-up of Durthu, the Court of Seasons, as well as the Troop of Dawn making their way towards the center of the battlefield. And finally, here's a close-up of his Court of Oaths, as well as the Court of Tides, and Coedel the Will Lord also moving forward as well. And finally, here's a close-up of his Sternbark the Harrower on my right-hand flank. Now, there is no more rest of the phase. There's no magic shooting or close combat. The reason why there is no pictures of that is because his magic phase was kind of weak. I did manage to dispel all of his spells, so there was no magic phase for the most part. Same thing with shooting. He was not within range to do any shooting, and there's no close combat because always engaged. So it makes up a pretty uneventful turn number 1 for the Wood Elves. So that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for Legion of Chaos, and this time I just start taking the offense. Last time I fought against Smell Like Febreze, I just kind of castled up and let him come to me, and that proved to be disastrous for my army, so this time I decided to take the initiative and take the fight to him. The first thing I do is I declare a charge with Haster the King of Yellow directly towards Sternbark the Harrower, and I make that charge successfully, so I fly across the battlefield and engage that tree man. My general has the best chance of taking out that tree man, and so that's why I sent him forward. Meanwhile, I'd also charged in the Droning Horrors as well. They did a long bomb charge across the battlefield. I think I rolled an 11, for their charge distance with their hover ability. So those guys charge directly into the Court of Tides over on the right hand side. My plan here is to hopefully I can kill enough of them in close combat to where I can break that unit and hopefully have them flee. If they do flee off the battlefield, That would be awesome to get those nice little points, or if I do manage to overrun, that'd be really fine as well. What my plan is to sweep along the right hand flank with my droning horrors and engage his tree man ancient Coedo the Will Lord, so that way I can bog him down and hopefully mitigate his combat abilities. That will leave his right hand flank open. At the same time, if I'm lucky, Hester the King in Yellow couldn't kill Sternbark the Harrower, in which case it opens up the right hand flank for assault. So that's pretty much what I decided to do, attack on the flank on the right hand side. I also charged in the Inglorious as well to charge directly into Durthu. Now I know my Inglorious might not survive fighting against Durthu the Harrower, but hopefully they can. If that's the case, I can bog him down for at least a turn. That will kind of protect my left hand flank. At the same time, I do march forward the rest of my army. I move up. No, sorry, not march up. I just move in their normal moon allowance. I actually moved my Horticulus Slimex over the left-hand side in a straight line formation with the Dustman as well as the Tallyman, so that way they protect on the flanks. Now, normally on the right-hand side, Forest would be a good defense to use for my flanks, but because I'm fighting Forest Spirits, it might not do me much good. But at the same time, though, I've got to start, committing my forces if I want to do any good at this one. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of the Inglorious, going for a suicide charge against Durthu, the eldest of ancients, and hopefully I can hold him down for a turn or two and buy my army some time to get into position. And here's a close-up for my main fighting units. There's Horticulus Slimex on the left, the Dustman in the center with Festus the Leech Lord, as well as a Tallyman with Barnabas the Scrivener. And here's a close-up of that awesome long-range charge from the Droning Horrors, making that full charge distance directly into the Court of Tides. Now, by charging the forward, I will not be able to use their shooting ability with my Death Heads, but like I said, my plan is to hopefully destroy that unit and then sweep around to the right-hand side, and then when I can do that, get out of the charge arc range of all the other Dryad units, as well as Coedo the Will Lord, and hopefully I can, throw a couple rounds of Death Heads at him, hopefully weaken him a little bit, and then charge in later on to kind of finish him off at that point. And then finally, here's a close-up of Hester the King in Yellow charging directly into Sternbark and ready to bring that close combat to that character. So with the moon phase, we go directly to the magic phase. And as you can see, I rolled double ones on that one of my Snake Eyes, so because of that, I don't get to use any spells from the magic phase. However, that does trigger the Reign of Chaos table for my army, which means that the instability rules for my army are now twice as much, which means that any characters I lose in instability, they just evaporate twice as many points because the winds of magic have died out. Now, that's not so much our issue for me because Nurgle is in Ascendance in this battle report, so I don't have to worry about instability rules, so no damage, no harm that way. But at the same time, though, it is kind of sad because now I can't beef up my units. So with the magic phase over with, we skip shooting because I don't have any shooting elements to use at the moment, and we go directly to the combat phase. So here's a close with the combat phase. I managed to put 3 wounds onto Sternbark the Harrower, which is pretty awesome as well. My opponent was unable to cause any wounds for me. He only actually had 2 attacks that actually made it past my weapon skill, and then of course the other 2 I was able to defend off with both my Chaos Armor. I think I had to roll 6 upward to protect that. And I think I got 1 with my Chaos Armor, and I got 1 with my Ward save because my Doom Prince has a 5 of Ward. And that pretty much makes it the combat over here on the right hand side. Meanwhile, close combat between my Droning Horrors as well as the Dryads actually went pretty good. I managed to kill 5 of the Dryads, which is pretty awesome considering. At the same time, the Dryads were not able to cause any wounds to me. For the most part, my friend Smells Like Febrez's dice roll was not very impressive at all. A lot of his rolls were coming down really low. He did have I think he did manage to hit me and wound me a couple of times, but my demonic save I think was able to mitigate those rolls that he did get off. So that did not end up pretty good. So because of that, I do defeat him. I have 5 in my combat result, plus 1 for the charge, and I have a standard bearer, so that gives me a combat result of 7. Minus 2 because he has his rank bonuses, which means I beat this unit by 5. And the reason why is because he doesn't have a standard bearer for that unit as well, and he's also out of range of his general, so these guys have to take a break test. And to make things worse, when he rolled for his break test, he rolled an 11. Now, because he's playing an all-Forest Spirit army, he doesn't get a battle standard bearer. So because of that, he can't re-roll his leadership test. So because of that, these guys have to take a break test, and they flee like 4 inches back. Needless to say, I overrun those guys really bad, and I chopped them down. I think I rolled like 7 or 8 inches forward, so those guys fly right over those Dryads, chopping down to the last man, which is really good because now it repositions me over to assault on the right-hand flank. So hopefully what I'm planning on doing is having my Droning Horror sweep around behind the army, right behind Coedo the Will Lord, and hopefully I can whittle him down a little bit with some long-range shots with my Death Heads. So that part was pretty awesome, wiping out a whole unit of Dryads just like that. However, for my Nurglings, it did not go so well. Durthu just managed to kill, I think, 3 of them as we ended up doing. Managed to destroy 1 base of Nurglings. And I believe it's because of the... No, I'm sorry, he killed 2 of my bases of Nurglings. That's right, because he uses Thunder Stomp ability as well as normal close combat attacks. Because of the Squish special rule, because these guys are swarms, whatever ends up being the difference in the combat result equals wounds for my Nurglings, and they got just vaporized just like that. So they didn't do much of anything to slow down Durthu, the Eldest of Ancients. And looking back now, it was probably bad idea to send him into him. I should have sent him to the Dryads in the Court of Seasons because they probably might have lasted a little bit longer. So, oh well, hindsight's 2020. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Wood Elves. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 2 for Smells Like Febreze, and this photo is taken after the movement phase, and he decides to charge forward with a couple of units. He sends in the Troop of Dawn, and that huge, unstoppable steam engine of Trinken go charge across the battlefield directly into my Tallyman, so now they're engaged in close combat. He does declare a charge of the Court of Seasons, but unfortunately for me, he rolled like a 3 for his charge distance, so he only moves up like 2 inches, so he doesn't really go off really well. He directed that charge directly against my Dustman. At the same time, though, he does successfully charge Durthu into Horticultic Slimex, so that part is pretty brutal as well. The only good news is that of my units that are fighting against the Wood Elves at this point, Horticultic Slimex does stand a better chance of fighting against Durthu, so that part's not so bad. Now, for the rest of his forces, he does do a combat reform. He does do not a swift reform. He does a reform with his Dryads from the Court of Oaths. They turn over 90 degrees to face off against my Droning Horrors. Same thing with Coedel the Warlord, and just puts him in positions that we can open fire with him with his Strangle Roots. That's not so much of a problem because I'm not planning on charging these guys in yet. I'm going to try to swoop around there on the right hand side with my 10-inch hover flight move and hopefully hit him a couple of times with some death heads before I commit him into Coedil. Luckily for me, I just have maneuverability over those Dryad units at this point. And at the same time, of course, Sternbark the Harrower as well as Haster the King in Yellow, they're still engaged in close combat. And that pretty much makes the move phase for turn number 2 for Smells Like Febreze. Here's a close-up of Durthu as well as the Troop of Dawn engaging with my 2 units of Horticultic Slimex as well as the Tallyman, and I'm really looking forward to see exactly how that combat goes. And here's a close-up of my Droning Horrors facing off against Coedel the Warlord as well as the Court of Oaths. And finally, here's a close-up of Haster the King Yellow as well as Sternbark engaged in close combat still. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And once again, my friend buddy Smells Like Febreze, his magic phase wasn't actually all that well. He managed to get off Throne of Vines. I did try to dispel that one with my dice rolls, but unfortunately wasn't able to do it. I missed it by 2. So because he does get the Throne of Vines ability off for Coedel the Warlord. The good news though is that the rest of his spells I was able to dispel with my rolls, so that part was kind of nice. So that was the only spell he managed to get off. However, I got to be really concerned for the next few rounds because for every Lure of Life spell he casts afterwards, they're going to be extremely boosted because he's got that Throne of Vines ability off. So I really have to look out for that in the future magic phases later on down the line. So with the magic phase over with, we skip shooting. Coedel did try to open up with his Strangle Roots onto my Droning Horrors, but he was unable to hit any of them or cause wounds, so I got pretty lucky there, and we go directly to close combat. In the combat phase, oh my god, it was really bad between Haster the King in Yellow as well as Sternbark the Harrower. When I rolled for my hits, I rolled like 4 1s, and I think around 4 is what I ended up doing. So I do manage to hit him once, which was pretty atrocious. Unfortunately for me though, my friend has a 6/6 save with minus strength from my Demon Prince. He doesn't get his armor save, but he does make his ward save, so I had caused no injuries onto him. However, Sternbark the Harrower, he decides to go with a Tree Whack ability against my character, and for the Tree Whack ability, what you do is pass a initiative check, and if you fail your initiative test, you take these 6 wounds. So I'm thinking, I got initiative 8, I got nothing to worry about for my character, so I let him do the Tree Whack thing, and when I roll from an initiative test, I roll a 6, and whenever there's a characteristic test, a 6 is an automatic fail, so because of that, Haster the King takes 3 wounds for his trouble, and that was really, really bad. I tried to take some ward saves against them, but unfortunately I just failed those, and it was all kinds of bad on that part. Meanwhile, combat against Durthu as well as Horticultic Slimex actually went pretty well. I managed to put 1 wound onto him. He also managed to only put 1 wound onto me. My Dawnstone ability really helped me out on this part because I failed a couple of armor saves, so when I re-rolled him again, that helped out. Against Durthu's strength, I think he has a 4-up armor saves when he ends up happening, so I got pretty lucky considering. Now, he does win combat by 1, but when I test to see if I break or not, I actually passed my break test, so nothing to worry about there. However, that still means that Durthu still has his Frenzy ability, so he does get +1 attack still because he won that round of combat, so I do have to worry about that in future rounds of close combat between these two. At the same time, the close combat between the Treekin as well as my Tallyman did not go very well. I lost 5 of my Plague Bearers of Nurgle. I did manage to kill one of the Treekin, but unfortunately for me, though, I do lose this combat. But the good news is Nurgle is in Ascendance in this battle report, so I don't take any instability damages, so that part's kind of nice. And since these guys are demons, they're unbreakable, I don't have to worry about taking break tests, so that part was kind of nice as well. It's pretty good because my Tallyman are a tar pit unit. They're designed to hold down units as best as they can, and so far they're doing a fantastic job of tying up that unit right now. However, I do have to be careful though, because if I'm doing a war of attrition thing, I don't have as many Plague Bearers as I usually have, so I do have to worry about that. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Legion of Chaos. Alright, so here's the bottom of turn number 2 for the Legion of Chaos. So the very first thing I do is I declare a charge with my Dustmen, and those guys make a long distance 8-inch charge across the battlefield directly into the Court of Seasons. So because of that, those 20 Dryads will be facing off against my Chaos Warriors, and I'm really looking forward to see exactly what happens there. For the rest of my army, everything else is pretty much engaged in close combat, except for my Droning Horrors. And like I said before, I maneuver those guys over to the left-hand side using their hovering ability, so that way they're right behind Coedel the Will Lord, as well as against right behind the the Court of Oaths. And like I said before, my plan is to have my Droning Horrors open up with some death heads directly against Coedel the Will Lord, so that way I can whittle them down a little bit with some wounds, and then of course I'll finish them off by charging in. And that pretty much makes up my movement phase for this one. Here's a close-up of Horticolic Slimex still engaged with Durthu, as well as my Dustmen engaged with the Court of Seasons. At the same time, you can still see my Tallyman still engaged with the Troop of Dawn as well. And here's a close-up of my Droning Horrors getting ready to pop a couple of death heads directly at Coedel the Will Lord. And I'm really looking forward to see exactly how those long-range weapons work, because they do cause D3 wounds apiece. Now, the only drawback is that their death heads are only strength 4, and Coedel the Will Lord is strength 6. But if I do manage to get 2 of them off, I have the possibility of actually killing that Tree Man Ancient. And that's pretty much what my plan is at this point. And finally, here's a close-up between Hastur the King in Yellow as well as Sternbark the Harrower. And I'm really worried for my Demon Prince because he is 2/3 the way dead, for lack of a better word. He's only got 2 more wounds before he dies. Hopefully, I can finish off the Tree Man and hopefully Soul Feeder as well and heal up some wounds at the same time. And so with that being said, with movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. So during the magic phase, I forget how many magic dice I get off. I think I get 6 or 7. Either way, I know that no, 8. That's what I managed to get because the Dark Prince Thirsts ability ran off. But since everybody's pretty much engaged and no 6s rolled, we pretty much ignore that Rain of Chaos chart ability. However, I only managed to get 2 spells off. I cast what's it called, Blades of Putrefaction off onto my Dustmen, so that way my Dustmen now have a 5 up for their poison rolls, for their poisonous attacks. At the same time, I also managed to get off Curse the Leper off onto Durthu as well, dropping his toughness down to 3, which will make him much easier to wound against with Horticolic Slimex. The only problem I got to worry about is that Horticolic Slimex has to roll a 4 up in order to hit him, so I do have to worry about that. But at the same time, because he's a little bit easier to wound, hopefully Horticolic Slimex's Warshrine Mulch will be able to cause some damage that way because he has a lower toughness value. So with the magic phase over with, we go to the shooting phase. Unfortunately, all my death heads didn't work at all, so that didn't work out too well. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to close combat. Alright, so in the combat phase, my Demon Prince, Hastur the King Yellow, had no problem whatsoever cutting down and finally finishing off Sternbark the Harrower, which was pretty awesome as well. I managed to put 3 wounds onto that guy and managed to kill him right off the bat. And when I rolled for my Soul Feeder ability, I rolled 2 6s, so because that he's pretty much mostly healed, he only has 1 wound left on him. You can't really see it, but the red dye is right beneath his arm with his sword, so I do apologize for that. He is carrying a wound though, just in case anybody was wondering. So with him being dead, I do a quick combat reform real quick, so that way he can stare right down the barrel towards the Court of Oaths across the battlefield from him. And the combat between Durthu as well as Horticolic Slimex went pretty well. I actually managed to put 2 more wounds onto him, which is pretty cool. Both of them from my Exalted Hero. Unfortunately for my Warshrine Mulch, he wasn't able to cause any damage onto Durthu just because his weapon skill was too low and I wasn't able to land any successful hits. And in exchange, when Durthu went back to attack as well, he didn't actually cause any injuries for me. That Dawnstone is saving my life, for lack of a better word. I did fail 2 armor saves, but because of the Dawnstone ability, I was able to re-roll those, and I managed to survive that as well. So I didn't manage to kill Durthu, so that part's kind of sad, but at the same time, though, he's halfway dead, and, you know, I'll take that. And because Durthu lost combat, he does lose his Frenzy ability, so he doesn't get additional attack either. So that part's pretty cool as well. Meanwhile, close combat between my Dustman as well as the Court of Seasons ended up being entirely in my favor. I issue out a challenge with Festus Leech Lord because I have to, because of Eye of the God's ability, and his Branch Nymph from the unit, of course, accepts it. The Branch Nymph did manage to put a wound onto Festus Leech Lord, but it did manage to kill the Dryad as well. And when I rolled off to see exactly what his Eye of the God's ability was, ended up being that he got +1 to his initiative, so, you know, not that great. So because I do kill the champion, which is pretty awesome, the rest of the combat between them, the Dryads do manage to kill only one of my Dustmen, and the reason why is because while Dryads do have a lot of attacks, they're only strength 3 as base, so because of that, I was able to save most of my armor saves for that, and I think I lost that guy. He failed his armor save, and I rolled for my regen save. I failed that one as well, so that's how come he died. However, in exchange, though, I do kill a bunch of the Dryads. I ended up managing to kill 8 of those guys in total, so that part was pretty awesome as well. So with the 8 Dryads that I killed, and combined with the Dryad champion, the Branch Nymph, I ended with a combat score of 9. I also charge giving me 10. I have a rank giving me an 11, as well as a standard bearer giving me 12. Now, they have a rank, so that drops me back to 11. They also killed a guy that drops me back to 10, but as you can see, 10 against their leadership of 8, they have to roll Snake Eyes in order to stand. And as you can see, they failed. They had a break. I think they ran back 7 inches, and I ran forward 9 inches. So because of that, the Dustmen just run down the Court of Seasons and just chop down those Dryads back to where they belong and kill them all. So that part was pretty awesome as well. And it also allows me to push my overrunning, of course, allows my Dustmen to do a combat reform later on in the battle report, and then I can start hitting against those the huge unit of Treekin, the Troop of Dawn, and hopefully I can start surrounding those guys and then get them in a double envelopment, so that way I can start whittling down those Treekins back to their base elements. Meanwhile, the combat between the Treekin as well as my Tallyman did not go very well. I lost 5 more of my Plague Bearers. I do manage to kill one of the Treekin, which is pretty awesome as well. And luckily, the only thing that's keeping this unit alive is the fact that they are unbreakable, because otherwise I have to take break tests otherwise. So that part's kind of nice as well. I do lose this combat, needless to say, but that's okay, because like I said, this is a tar pit unit, and I'm just keeping those Treekin engaged. And when you're considering the amount of Treekin I'm fighting against, I'm actually doing pretty good, considering for the most part. That does buy my unit some more time in order to hit the back of those Treekin. Like I said, my plan is to have my Dustmen go 180 and charge in the back of the Treekin, so that way I can have a double envelopment going on and catch him to a pincer attack. So with the bottom of round number 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn 3 for the Wood Elves. Alright, so this is the top of turn number 3 for the Wood Elves. This is after the movement phase, and as you can see here, he doesn't really do any movement at this point. He just keeps his forces primarily located at. He does wheel his Court of Oaths with Drycha a little bit to the right hand side, so that way they can intercept Haster the King in Yellow when he charges forward. He also did a 180-degree turn with Coedo the Will Lord, so that way he can take some shots off with his Strangle Roots against my Droning Horrors for the most part. And as you can see, everything else is pretty much engaged in close combat. So with movement phase over with, and here's a close-up of the units that are engaged. Porticolix, Slimex, and Molts are still engaged in close combat with Durthu. Same thing with the Troop of Dawn, still engaged with my Tallyman, and that pretty much makes the move phase in the center. And here's a close-up of Coedo the Will Lord as well as the Court of Oaths. Now, there is no magic phase because, unfortunately, my friend rolled for his power dice. He rolled Snake Eyes as well, so he doesn't get a magic phase this turn. And he does try to shoot with Coedo the Will Lord. I forgot to take a photo of it. I do apologize about that part, but he does manage to cause a wound onto my Droning Horrors, so you know, they're carrying a wound right now, and that's not such a big deal after all. So with shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And combat between Durthu as well as Horticolix Slimex, once again, nothing really happened. I just failed to hit against him. He's got a really high weapon skill, so I had to hit him on a 4-up. I did manage to hit him one time, I think, and I did actually cause a wound, but he armor saved it, so not much happened there. And same thing with him. When he tried to attack me back, I managed to armor save everything that he threw at me, thanks to the Dawnstone. And to be perfectly honest, I think the only reason why Horticolix Slimex is surviving this long is because of that Dawnstone. If it wasn't for that, I'm pretty sure this guy would have been dead a long time ago. However, combat between the Tallyman as well as against the Troop of Dawn is starting to go into my friend Smells Like Febrez's favor. He managed to kill 7 of my Plague Bearers, so that part was kind of sad, and I managed to kill 1 Treekin in exchange, but he still has, like, I think 9 more Treekin left, so he's got Treekin for days, and my Plague Bearers are starting to get whittled down pretty bad. So I have to hurry up and try to engage these guys quickly, because otherwise, if they destroy my Plague Bearers, they'll be able to free to move around, and I won't be able to surround that unit like I have originally planned. And that pretty much makes up turn number 3 for the Wood Elves. So with that, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Legion of Chaos, and this photo is taken after the movement phase, and I decide to charge in. I send in my Droning Horrors directly into Coedel the Warlord because my Death Heads weren't working very well, so hopefully close combat will do the trick. I also charge in Haster the King in Yellow against the Court of Oaths because if there's one thing that Demon Princes do very well, that is fighting against infantry, so I plan on blending those Dryads to pieces. My plan is hopefully I can break that unit, cause an overrun type situation where they flee, and I can overrun destroy them and charge directly into the back of Coedel, so that way that Tree Man Ancient isn't being attacked from two sides, the front being attacked by plague drones as well as my Demon Prince hitting from behind. At the same time, I do move a Swift Reform with my Dustmen. Now, they won't be able to charge because they're doing that Swift Reform, but that sets them up for my next turn to charge them directly into the back of the Treekin. I just hope that my Tallyman will last long enough so that way I can get that pincer attack in and then also get the combat result from that as well. And of course, Horticolic Slimex as well as Dirthu are still engaged in close combat. Here's a close-up of Horticolic Slimex as well as Dirthu still engaged in close combat, as well as my Tallyman and the Troop of Dawn still engaging it, and there's also a close-up of my Dustmen getting themselves to set up for a rear charge directly into the back of the Troop of Dawn. And here's another close-up of my Droning Horrors charging directly into Coedel, so now that Tree Man Ancient is engaged in close combat, as well as Haster the King in Yellow charged directly into the Court of Oaths. I do have to contend with Dryka, so I do have to worry about that, but at the same time though, you know, there's the breaks at that point. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And in the magic phase, I roll double 6s for the Winds of Magic, which brings up the Reign of Chaos chart for summoning demons, which means I get 2d6 plus 3 any basic infantry choices of demons that I want. In this case, I'm bringing on Plague Bearers, so I get 2d6 plus 3 Plague Bearers that I can deploy anywhere on the battlefield 1 inch away from enemy forces. And as you can see, I put them right behind Dirthu, so that way they can charge in the back of that general, and hopefully I can catch him in a pincer attack between Horticolic Slimex as well as 12 Plague Bearers. I managed to get 12 in that roll, so that part was pretty awesome as well. So I really can't complain. The rest of the magic phase wasn't that impressive. I did try to get a couple of Lore of Death spells off, but my buddy was able to dispel those. I also tried to cast a couple of Lore of Nurgle spells as well, but unfortunately I just rolled really low for those ones. I wasn't able to get out Shroudlings or any other spells I usually cast with Festus the Leech Lord. However, I did have 2 power dice left, and I did manage to get off Giver Glory off, so I managed to give +1 strength to Horticolic Slimex, which makes him a little bit deadlier in close combat against Dirthu, so that part's kind of cool. So with the magic phase over with, we skip the shooting phase because I don't play that game, and we go directly to close combat. So in the close combat phase, the fight between Haster the King in Yellow against this unit of Dryads was not very good. I only managed to kill 2 Dryads, and that's because one came from his normal attacks and one came from his Thunderstop, and that was all that happened. I just rolled horribly for my hit as well as wound rolls in this one. I rolled a bunch of 1s and 2s like it was nobody's business. Now the good news for me is that Smells Like Febreze also had the same amount of Rotten Luck as well, wasn't able to cause any damage onto Haster the King in Yellow. I think Dryka managed to hit him twice as well as wound him twice, but my Chaos Armor save pretty much, negated that because he has a 1-up armor save, which is pretty awesome as well. So now there's a stalemate between my Demon Prince as well as these Dryads, so there's that. However, there is a silver lining. Horticolic Slimex does finally manage to kill off Dirthu finally, so that part was pretty awesome as well. So Dirthu goes crashing to the ground dead, and I do a combat reform with Horticolic Slimex facing off against the left-hand flank of the Troop of Dawn. And speak of the Troop of Dawn, ended up being another stalemate again. My friend kind of flubbed his rolls really bad for his close combat attacks as well as his stomp attacks, so he does not manage to kill any more of my Plague Bearers, so that part was pretty nice. And unfortunately, my Plague Bearers weren't able to kill any of the Treekins, so those guys are now stuck in that stalemate. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to kill any Treekin, but this is also a good thing because now it sets up his Troop of Dawn to be attacked from behind with my Dustmen, as well as his left-hand flank with my newly summoned Plague Bearers, as well as Horticolic Slimex, so that part was pretty good. And close combat between Coedel the Warlord as well as my Droning Horrors, it was kind of medium. He used his Tree Whack ability off onto one of my Plague Bearers. He does manage to kill my Standard Bearers, so that part was kind of sad. However, my guys did manage to put 2 wounds onto Coedel, so that part was kind of cool as well. I did lose combat on this one, but because I'm demonic, I don't break because we're unbreakable, and Nurgle's an Ascendant, so I don't lose anybody else as well, so that part is pretty awesome. So at the end of turn number 3, we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for Smells Like Febreze. So this is the top of turn number 4 for the Wood Elves, and as you can see from the movement phase, nothing moves, and the reason why is because everybody's engaged in close combat. The Troop of Dawn is engaged with the Tallyman, Coadil is engaged with the Joining Horrors, and the Court of Oaths with Dryka are engaged with Haster the King in Yellow. So not much is really happening for so far. Pretty boring movement phase. So there's also no magic phase or shooting because everybody's engaged in close combat. There is no shooting phase, and for his magic phase, I managed to dispel all of his spells as well. So because of that, there is no real photos of that. So pretty uneventful magic phase as well, which is kind of a rarity because the last time I fought against Smell Like Febreze, he just dominated the magic phase last time. So that takes us directly to the combat phase. This time around, I did manage to kill Dryka, so that part was pretty cool as well. He issued a challenge to Dryka. My general, of course, accepted. He managed to put a wound onto Haster the King in Yellow, but I managed to kill Dryka no problem. And then with my rest of my attacks, which was my Thunder Stomp, I managed to kill 2 more Dryads from that. And then the Dryads, of course, managed to put a wound onto Haster the King in Yellow. So he's carrying 2 wounds, which is kind of rough, but at the same time, these Dryads are kind of, slowly dying off bit by bit. Now, these guys do have to take a break test because I do beat them, but they managed to survive and they just stand the ground, so that part's kind of sad. And combat between my Tallyman as well as the Treekin was horrible. Those Treekin managed to finish up the last of my Tallyman, so I lose Barnabas the Scrivener as well as the Tallyman, and he does a quick combat reform to face off directly against the front of the Dustman because he sees that as a bigger threat. Now, either way you look at it, he still has to worry about being charged in the flank by Horticolic Slimex, but he perceives the Dustman to be a greater threat, so he positions in such a way to receive the charge from those guys in the next turn. Meanwhile, close combat between Coadil the Willow-Lord as well as my Joining Horrors ended up being a draw. No injuries were actually thrown. He does use his Tree Whack ability again onto my Joining Horrors, but I managed to pass my initiative test on that one, so that part was kind of cool. And however, when it came to my counterattacks, I failed to do anything against him, so because of that, those 2 units are still engaged in close combat. So with combat over with, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 4 for the Legion of Chaos, and this photo is taken after the movement phase, and I charge everything I have into the Troop of Dawn. I send in the Dustmen to the front so that way they can fight against that unit from before. I then also charge in Horticolic Slimex as well as Mulch into the left-hand flank, and same thing with my newly summoned unit of Plague Bearers. They do a really quick wheel charge directly into them, into their left-hand flank. So now those guys are caught in a pincer attack from the left-hand side as well as the front, so that part was really cool. And with that, we skip magic and shooting, and the reason why is because I don't shoot, and my magic was pretty much dispelled. I think I rolled like 3 for my power dice, and so they had 2, I had 3. He also challenged channeled twice, once with Coadil as well as one. Sorry, not channeled twice, channeled once. He was able to stop all my spells from going off, and I was able to do anything. I did try to cast a Shrouding spell off because I had 1 power dice left over, but I rolled a 1 on that one, so nothing really much happened there. So with the magic phase over with, because nothing much happened, we go directly to the combat phase. And this time around, combat was pretty much lackluster between my Joining Horrors as well as Coadil Willow-Lord. Once again, they were unable to do anything to each other. However, Haster the King in Yellow, though, he just went full pell-mell on the Card of Oaths, managed to kill 8 of those Dryads all by himself. So with the 8 that I caused, with no wounds being done to me, I win this combat by a landslide, and those Dryads had to take a break test and run. When they took the break test, I think he rolled like a 4 on that one, I rolled like a 10, so needless to say, I overrun those Dryads from the Court of Oaths, chopping them down along the way, and I charged directly into the back of Coadil the Willow-Lord. Unfortunately for me, I did not soul feeder any of those injuries that I caused, so because of that, Haster the King in Yellow is still carrying 2 wounds, but at the same time though, things could be worse. At least now I have Coadil the Willow-Lord surrounded and getting ready to be chopped down to pieces by some demons. In the combat phase, I issue out a challenge with Horticolic Slimex because I'm required to do so by Eye of the Gods ability. His Treekin Elder does accept, and luckily for me, I do manage to kill that champion, earning me a +1 to my strength. So now Horticolic Slimex is carrying 2 strength for his attacks, which is pretty awesome. I think that makes him a strength 8 because he's using a halberd as well, so that was pretty sweet. In addition to the combat, I lose 1 of my Dustmen as well as 1 of my Plague Bearers from my newly summoned units, so that wasn't so bad. In exchange though, I managed to kill 3 more Treekin as well, so that part was pretty awesome as well. Needless to say, I win by a landslide in this combat between the Dustmen as well as the Treekin, so because of the Troop of Dawn do have to take a break test. They fail their break test, they flee, I overrun, and my Dustmen chop down those Treekin back to their baser elements and murder them all to the last man. So that part was pretty awesome as well. Meanwhile, combat between Kodo the Warlord as well as my plague drones didn't go so well. Nobody was able to injure anybody else, so all they really much was just kind of stare at each other lovingly because apparently they don't want to kill each other. I'm not really sure why. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of the turn for the Wood Elves. So this takes directly to the bottom of top of turn number 5 for the Wood Elves, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. And as you can see, there is no movement because the only thing my friend has left is Kodo the Warlord. Now he does get 5 power dice for his magic phase, but luckily for me though, he tried to sink all of his power dice and try to cast off Flesh to Stone on Kodo. And I managed to roll double 6s on my Dispel, so managed to put that spell away. So with the magic phase over with and the shooting phase over with, we go directly to close combat. And in the end, Kodo the Warlord does die. He does try to tree whack Haster the King in Yellow, but I do pass my initiative test, so nothing much happens there. And then I think my plague drones managed to put a wound on Kodo, and then Haster the King in Yellow just finished him off in close combat, just killing that tree man agent and just making him drop dead, saying timber. And that, ladies and gentlemen, takes us directly to the end of the game, ending a victory for the Legion of Chaos on this one. As you can see, the table has been completely cleared of all Wood Elf forces, netting me a major victory in this case. So that part's pretty awesome as well. It's kind of nice seeing a table free of any forest spirits. So with the battle report over with, we go directly to the after action report because this game is now over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king.
Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 56, and it being a victory for Commander CheapSkate. For my losses, I lost Barnabas the Scrivener, the Tallyman, as well as the Inglorious. Meanwhile, Smells Like Febreze lost everything. He lost Durthu, Kodo the Warlord, Dryka, the Court of Seasons, the Court of Tides, the Court of Oaths, the Troop of Dawn, as well as Sternbark the Harrower. In the end, the reason why I won this battle was because of magic this time around. The last time I fought against Smells Like Febreze, I fought against his 4 Spirit Army, and he dominated the magic phase last time. He managed to buff up all of his units, as well as hexing mine, making mine really, really weak. So because this time around, though, it is not the case. His magic phase was pretty lackluster this battle report, so that allowed me to pick off his units one by one, so that part was kind of nice as well. And also, I decided to stay aggressive this time. Last time I played very defensively, and that hesitation cost me that last battle, but this time, being aggressive and taking the fight to him really helped me out because it kind of set the tone and the pace of the battle as well. I had the initiative the entire time. Also, speaking of magic, magic was not that great for me this time around. Most of the time I usually dominate the magic phase, but this time it just didn't work out for myself or for Smells Like Febreze. The only highlight of the magic phase is when I summoned out 12 Plague Bearers due to the Reign of Chaos chart, so you know, that pretty much is about that one for that as well. As another high note, I do love Horticultic Slime Mix and Mulch. That Exalted Hero kit out that I have with him, withstanding attack with Ginniver Glory, is just too awesome, especially with his War Shrine. And every single time I play this Chaos Legion list, I will always put a War Shrine in my army because that really helped out a lot. This was a fun battle against an awesome opponent, and just like always, I am looking forward to the rematch against fighting against Smells Like Febreze again. On a side note, this will be the last battle report I'll use with my Legion of Chaos for a little while. I finally have 2,000 points of my Ogre Kingdoms already painted up. As you guys have been watching up on Hobby Side videos, you would have seen the progress we made on our studio's Ogre Kingdom army. I got 2,000 points of those guys painted up, so I'll be using those for a little while in our Golden Age battle reports because I'm really looking forward to using them. I've had them for a while. They're all painted up beautifully, and now it's time to see what kind of damage they can do on the battlefield as well. As always, you guys, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for the latest and greatest hobby news on this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.